everybody. Let's get this party started. So, my name's Louise, and there are two parts to my background. One part is that my PhD, as Rod said, is in business, and my studies in that area. But the other side is that I sang opera for 15 years in Europe. So, today's presentation may be a little bit flavoured by that. Now, as I look around the room, I see wonderful people who work substantially in face-to-face communication. And of course, you work with teachers, with staff, with children, with parents. And I can imagine that the way that you do that interaction, is a critical success factor in what you do. And yet so often we don't have great feedback on that, or a lot of it is undiscussable. I literally half an hour got off the phone from a lady who said to me that her board had given her the feedback that she needed help. And I said to her, great, what specifically was their feedback? And she said, they said I'm too blunt. Now, you know what? I mean, we kind of all know vaguely what that means, but that's not actionable. What can she do? And I think there's been this discussion in the papers about, has anyone been following the AFL, about the different gestures? Yes, look, you couldn't have missed it. So we had Adam Goodes who did the spear throwing gesture, and then we had was it Dustin Martin last week who did the up yours gesture. And the issue was it okay to do one and not okay to do the other? And we tend to just have a gut reaction. But the thing with those gestures is that Adam Goodes' gesture was a war gesture, and it is in a competitive field, whereas the other fellow's gesture is a sexual gesture. And does that have relevance? Now, to throw in a name, I did a blog on this, and Jeff Kennett got back to me and said, oh, you're going to ban waving next. And I said, I'm not going to ban anything. I'm just saying what is intelligent conversation around face-to-face communication, and what are we going to do about it? Well, what I find is that many people, when they don't have enough power, is that they use strategies where they think that they will get power by throwing themselves forward, and you get a lot of this in today's society. I went into Parliament House to hear the debate, and I was fascinated to hear their rhetoric and their, everything that they did. And a lady stood up to actually talk to the policy that was put forward, and she stood up, she leant forward, and she said, "You're a dickhead." And that was the end of the argument. Like, that was it. And I thought, we're paying for this. We're paying for it. And I guess, worse than that, of course, is that people are silenced. And that is the biggest catastrophe. So, what I would love to do in our session this afternoon is actually look at our face-to-face communication, get some really strong practical guidelines on which we can make change. So, let's think about it. Face-to-face communication. So we're doing these skills. Can I ask you to put a hand out in front, please? Could I ask you to clench your fist and then point a finger straight ahead? Now, if you could just turn that in a clockwise direction, just check the person next to you, check their clockwise. People are weird. People are weird. Is that clockwise? Yep. And then just pop that onto your chin. Yep. Is that your chin? Chin? I can't believe you fell for that. I can't believe it. Okay, so face-to-face communication. Most people I could see actually followed me to here. And it is a reality in face-to-face. There are three things that communicate. It is, of course, the words that you say. I said chin, but most people actually didn't go to their chin. What you did was follow my body, and our body shape sends communication. And then the third thing is our vocal tone that sends communication as well. You build your credibility on your vocal tone. And it wouldn't be so funny if the voice that I wasn't doing now isn't one you hear on a daily basis. And I go down to my local Safeways, which is slightly outside Melbourne, country, and I put my shopping on the conveyor belt. It goes down the conveyor belt, and every week the little girl on the other side goes, "G'day, how are you?" And every week I think, oh God, is that permanent? Because I believe voice is a choice. And if voice is a choice, why would you choose that one? You know, it's a complete career limiter. So, you know, our work is about ourselves, but it's also about others. So face-to-face communication is about the way we hold our body, our vocal tone, and also the words that we say, but you can see the reality is that they're not so important. Now, having said that, therefore, we go, brilliant, what is the research? So, you are leaders in your field, and they have actually defined leadership in voice as having 3 qualities. Do you know what those 3 qualities are of the voice of leadership? Any idea? See? You shouldn't be yelling it out. I guess you know it. It's the voice of leadership is low. In pitch, it's low. The voice of leadership is low. So if I were to go low, you would immediately be far more likely to say, there's a leader. There's a leader. The second quality of the voice of leadership is that it's loud. The voice of leadership is loud. And the third quality is it's slow. So low, slow, and loud is the voice of leadership. Now, do people do this? Yes, they do. That is, in fact, what Margaret Thatcher trained to do, to go low, slow, and loud. Now, here's the reality. I'm looking around the room, and there are a lot of women. Well, guess what? Our voices are an octave higher than men's. So immediately when you're at the table and all of the other principals are going, unga chunga, unga chunga, unga chunga, you know, what do you think? And you go, well, I think it's really critical. Shut up. You know, it is inherently, it says not leadership. Recent research has also shown that our volume can be 1/5 of a man's volume. Now, I sometimes hear men go, no, not my wife. But women have the ability to use twang, which is carrying power, but not volume. So here we are, half the room have an octave higher and volume that is not capable of being as loud. So what's the action? You have to fake it to make it. No, in Australia we loathe lack of authenticity. So if we take our voice off what is our fundamental frequency, we're just not going to do it. In fact, Australians hate being told what to do, and they hate lack of authenticity. So when it comes to all the non-verbal research, what happens is we tend to go, piss off. I just do what I do. You know, I just am who I am, I bring who I am. And mostly that is a squashed form of who we are. And what it has led to is a crisis. You know, I think it doesn't matter what your politics are, they all have issues. And what we need to do is have a different model of how we communicate. Now, this is nothing new on the earth, but it is in terms of our face-to-face for business-type situations and education situations. It's saying, I don't care what perception is. We need to redefine the voice of leadership. And that is by saying, you are perfect just the way you are, you know, and you need to bring that out. And in bringing that out, we recognize the mind is at the core, the mind reflects in the body, the mind actually shapes the body, and then there is a vocal outcome. And nervousness is the one where that's obvious. We become nervous mentally, our body takes certain shapes, and then we get a vocal outcome. But there's a lot more than just nerves. You know, you can, there are things like, this one I hear all the time, and it's when people get in front of groups and become defensive. Now, where's this built in? You know, it's often built in at school. We stand up and, you know, we get things wrong and the class laugh and we get defensive and we carry it through life. How we manifest that mental state of defensiveness is we tend to jam the back of the neck. We jam the back of the neck and we start turning like this. And that jamming at the back of the neck is defensiveness. You see, it's like I'm backed up against a wall. I'm not fighting you, I'm not running, but I'm defensive. That's a chronic voice in police. Police do that a lot. And the vocal tone that it gives me is I have a tight vocal tone, and also I can't breathe. So I get very short phrases, and there's repercussions of that, and the classic example of that is Pauline Hanson. She does, I don't like it. Please explain. Because it doesn't have enough air to say a longer sentence. So let's have a look at our skills. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run through some blockages of bringing who you are to what you do, because that's what we need to do rather than fake it to make it. So I would love everyone here, please, to take a great big deep breath to relax so that we can all get ready. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Take a deep breath. And breathe out. Now, that was great. I did not see the roof lift off. Normally what happens when I ask people to take a deep breath is I get this. And people take this ridiculous breath into their upper body, the repercussions of which are, you look stupid. Secondly, you don't get much oxygen, and so you can't think. You don't know where you are. And thirdly, it squashes your throat. So you find that when you're not talking in front of a group, you're a certain way, but when you get in front of a group, you sound different because your throat is squashed. So the reality is that most people use the strategy to take a deep breath in, and it doesn't work. What we need to do is actually do a different technique. We should see breath down here. So can I ask you to put your hands in your stomach, please? And I'm not going to ask you to breathe in, I'm going to ask you to breathe out. Are you ready? On the count of 3, I want you to breathe out. 1, 2, 3, breathe out. Great. Which way did your stomach go? Hands up if it went in. Hands up if it went out. Most people, and hands up if you've got no idea what you're doing. It's supposed to move. It's supposed to move. Which way does it move? This is not optional. It moves this way. That is a breath out. The stomach goes in. That is a breath in. You can see what happens on the inside of the body. That is a breath out. The lungs, the diaphragm is that orangey bit in the middle. And it's that diaphragm that is the critical player in the whole group. And we're going to be doing a workshop on performance anxiety, and you need to become intimately aware of that thing called the diaphragm. Because what happens with the diaphragm is, you can see in that video, it goes up and down substantially. And therefore, when we breathe in, the lungs expand, the diaphragm goes down, and the stomach is the bit that moves and it goes out. I asked you to breathe out, the stomach goes in, the diaphragm goes up. The lungs get squeezed, the air comes out. Why is it that most of the room actually got that back, the front? Why is it that the stomach went actually the wrong way? Why? Do you know? It's stress. It's a habitual stress breath. What happens is that diaphragm, when we get stressed, that bit there, instead of moving substantially, it actually goes rock hard. It jams. And when it jams rock hard, we get a hard layer through our body. The lungs go to expand, they hit rock. So instead of this bit of the body moving, it's the upper part of the body that moves, which then gives you those repercussions of looking stupid, having no oxygen for your brain, and sounding ridiculous. So we need to get it back down in our stomach, working the right way, and we need a strategy for kicking the diaphragm free. It's not relaxing, we're going to kick it free. Can I ask you to put your hands in your stomach, please? And I would love you to breathe out again on the count of 3. We know the stomach's going to go in, and I want you to give me all the air you've got like this. So are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Do it again. 1, 2, 3. Excellent, 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 excellent. Now, if anyone found that hard, keep practicing, because you can see that's what you need to do. Now, I would love you, with that air coming out of your body, to turn to the people at your table and say, hi. 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 Are you ready? Let's hear it. Hi, 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 hi. Hi, excellent, excellent, excellent. Well done. Right, now, did that feel odd to anyone? Yeah, me see how much I care. I don't. That's actually how you're supposed to speak. You know, air coming out of the body, all we do is vibrate the vocal folds and it comes out in sound waves. So, hi, that's how you speak. Most of us, for our breathing technique, have it round the back to front. We get that right. Now we add sound. Hi, hi. But many of us go sound, go, hello, hello, and we block in different ways. And then, of course, we need to take that a step further, which is exactly the same technique. The stomach goes in. You open your mouth and go, hi, hi, hi. So let's try that. Could we open our mouths, please? And we're going to do 3 sung sounds. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Hi, hi, hi. I love that. You know, doesn't that sound great? Do you know that? Why is this so important? Firstly, it's important for you in a health sense because every time, if your diaphragm is free, you breathe, you massage your intestines. You know, it is good for you. Second of all, that when we give air out like that to people, we think there's nothing between us, but there's air. And as we speak, that air vibrates and massages people. As you speak, you show people that you care by giving them your air. When we say, hi, how are you? And air comes out of our body, it says, I'm fearless and I'm happy to be here. What's become chronic in our society are many different voices where we lose our air. And one of those, which we're hearing in particular in young women, is called vocal fry. And vocal fry is where 1/6 of the air volume comes out of your body and the vocal folds just flap in the breeze. And it sounds like this, vocal fry, vocal fry. And all the American pop stars do it, and the young girls are doing it. You know, we imitate throat shapes, people we admire, and they do that. So it's just become chronic. They've shown that for people who do vocal fry, they get 1/5 of the jobs of people who don't do vocal fry. It has huge psychological implications for not caring. We want to give air. Now, funnily enough, the vocal folds actually have a secondary sexual function. Did you know that? No? Why would you need to know that? You need to know that, I'll tell you very quickly, because the vocal folds swell up and lubricate when you're sexually excited. So not only does giving air like hi actually show that you care, when you're sexually excited, the vocal folds swell up and lubricate. When they swell, you get lower notes. And because they've swollen, the air continues to come through your throat, which means the second quality of the voice of sexual excitement is, it's breathy. It's breathy. Now, in a sexual context, if you were in an intimate moment and your partner said to you, darling, you're wonderful, you're not. Sexual excitement is low and breathy. But interestingly enough, you know, I mean, it's kind of the ultimate giving. So why would you want to know that? Because there's a huge context. Oh, actually, back in that intimate moment, for the men in the room, it's if your girlfriend says or whatever, says, darling, you're wonderful, you're not. But for the girls, don't forget, it's not take that photo off. In your schools, funnily enough, if you were to say to, if a parent came in and they've got a personal situation and something very emotional, and you were to say, oh, heavens, that's terrible. Oh, they're not going to go, you just become sexually excited by my personal problems. They're not, because there's a massive umbrella. My point is, they don't know this, right? I just told you that so you remember it. Because, sex is a way of giving to others, but it works in everyday context. If you give air to show you care, you give extra air to show just how emotionally involved You really are. And you know, in our world where I'm looking downstairs at your hall, and there's photographs, there's employing staff, you know, there's just so many issues that you have to deal with. And what happens when we get into that mode is that we strip the air from our sound. And so we become very tight, there is no air escaping. And this type of voice just says, really, I couldn't give a shit. It is not conducive, and yet if your mental state is involved in processes and procedures, this is the type of voice that tends to come as a consequence. And we need to be very careful. We get so tight. I've got a lady I work with, and she came to me and she said, I work with people putting women in senior positions. Audiences find me very threatening, and I don't know why. And I'm like, I've got an idea. And another lady who was on a board, as you have, and she said to me, my board tell me I'm intimidating. I said, oh, well, let's meet up. So I met up with her, and she said, I'm actually very caring and sharing. And so her caring and sharing got her leaning forward, but actually there's whites under the balls of her eyes that showed. And she'd go, who's got questions? And then I said to her, what strategy do you use to soften that? She said, I smile. You know, so we've got to be very careful about the strategies, understanding what's happening and the strategies that we use. You know, it doesn't work. No, we are sharing our air. That exercise with the stomach going in is actually a way of you kicking the diaphragm free when it's jammed. It's called Kapalabhati in yoga, and I would put it to you that you build it into your repertoire, that whenever you get into a stressful situation or before that, you can actually do a cough and it gives you the same exercise. So could we try that? The cough with the stomach going in, okay? Excellent. Now, what I would love, I'd love a volunteer. What was your name? John. No, it's not. What is it? Anne. I would love now, using these techniques, for Anne to come up on stage and greet the group. Anne! Yay! Anne! Woo, 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 woo. Anne, well done. And now say hi to the group. Yeah, beautiful. Lovely. Yeah, lovely, Anne. Now let's have a look at all the things. You're breathing up here, so the stomach goes in. What's a great idea is when you engage with the group is to cuddle them. So to try, hi, and you cuddle the group. Let's try it. Go, hi. Okay, start from down low, hi. Yes, so what we tend to do with the hands, like the karate chop, is we go, hi. You know, all these things. But actually, to be a cuddle, the hands come from below like that. Hi. They come from below. Try that. Yes. Did you see how much more caring that was? It really is. So, can everyone try that, please? Go, hi. Your stomach goes in, your arms go up. Hi. And well done. Now, what happens is, whenever we get into face-to-face engagement, we tend to think that the show starts here, but it doesn't. It starts whenever people get your attention. So what Anne did there was what many of us do, is that we actually look down. We break eye contact, and just like when you break air, it breaks trust. When you break eye contact, it breaks trust. Who's the worst air breaker, by the way, on the planet? Tony Abbott. Tony Abbott breaks his air mid-sentence. And what that does is, unlike the smooth massage, is it breaks trust. We trust people whose air continues to flow. We think that it's caring to get the air out, and we trust people whose air continues to flow. So Anne, when you go down there, I want you to go back down again, and when you stand up, I want you to look at the room. Look at the room, and keep looking at the room until you get up here. Okay, yay! And look at the room, look at the room, look at the room. Yeah! Excellent. And then stop, and then go hi. Hi, excellent. Could you see how you didn't know which way to look? But there are techniques, it's like modelling. Obama always comes on the stage, he goes to one side, he always goes, hi, and then he goes back to the other side, hi, and then he comes to the middle, hi everyone. Did you know he does that? There is a technique, it's like models when they come out, they go left, 2, 3, 4, right, 2, 3, 4, centre. Turn left. So there's actually techniques, and what we tend to do is look at the floor. Now the next thing, Anne, is that when we get up on stage, there is spatial awareness. And spatial awareness says that it's normally front and centre which is the most powerful position. I'd move that slightly to the left on this stage because this is where the light is. But there is a power position in every space, be it at a table, be it on a stage, be it in a room. And you need to work this, especially for women who don't have low, slow and loud. We need to work whatever else we can. And if you've got a long table, Anne, where would the power position be on that table? A long table, yeah. Mm.
Usually at the head.
Yep. Well, you better make sure you're principal if you're going to sit at the head, because you need positional power, because otherwise everyone can turn from you and be disruptive. And in fact, the power position of a long table is in the middle of the table, yeah, because you can't lose the group. So the middle of the table. So when you come up on stage, I want you to take the power position, take it, and then go, good afternoon, everyone. Okay, and coming from there, yay! Woo! Take it. Did you like it? Lovely, beautiful, Anne. Excellent. Well done. So we think that communication is about, just bringing who you are, but there are techniques. And you stand up, well done, Anne, you stand up, you look at the group. I would have looked left and then turned here and then looked maybe back there, over to there. Take the centre, stop. Good afternoon, everyone. And then embrace the group. We tend to use our gestures in patterns. So we do the penguin, hi, I'm Louise, hi. That's called the penguin. Or we do the windscreen wipers, hi, I'm Louise. The double windscreen wipers, hi, I'm Louise. The rollers, hi, I'm Louise. Or the other day I got danger, 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 danger. The one that is, for many of us, very dangerous for women, the juggernauts. Hi, I'm Louise. And I did actually see somebody come up in front of a group the other day and say, hi, everyone. So we have to think about gestures, how they look, but also they assist our air and they cuddle the group. So with the group this big, it's that. If it were just this table, it would be that. If it was just you, it would be that. You reach with your arms and it helps with the air. And we take spatial awareness. So if I were standing here as the power position, if I want to ask questions, I don't want to be on the power position. It's too authoritative. I don't say, does anyone have any questions? Using spatial awareness, I would do a boot scoot to get off the power position for questions. Are there any questions? Because what I can do then is say, that's a great question, and the answer to that is this. And can you see you take the power? You can really feel it, can't you? Any other questions? Oh, because if you don't like the question, you can go, that's interesting. And I think that, get out. I think Anne probably has a great answer for that one. And get out of the line of fire and start to use it rather than, especially as women, relying on your power to do it. Because we don't have it and we turn it to aggression. So. And well done, those things coming up on the stage. Now, when we stand and listen, as you do so often in what you do, how do we stand? This is called rest position, and people are very unaware of what they do for rest position. I find in mining industries and those very male-dominated industries that men will come out and they'll go, right, we'll open for questions. Are there any questions? Yep. They do that a lot in the prisons too. Any questions? A little bit of this happening. thinly disguised. Women never do this. Women never do this. Why? Because there is a psychological meaning of the legs spread wide apart. And the psychological meaning, they have researched it with gorillas, and they have found, true, that it is all about the message about the size of the male genitalia. So when one spreads one's legs, you got any questions? The message is, because you know who you're dealing with. So that's what men do. What do women do? Now, I know as principals you won't fall into this pit, but you will see it around you all the time. Women do this. Hi, are there any questions? And we cross over. And this is jungle behaviour because it's very primal. You know, what some of the men are doing is going, cop this, and the women are going, no way. And we need professional positions. Now, I've been watching you and you're all really good at this, but let's have a look at some, not rules, there are no rules except don't fiddle with your genitals. But you would be so surprised how often I have to say that to people. I had a man the other day and he stood in front of the group doing this. And when I suggested that that was not a suitable thing to do, he said, why not? I'm like, do I have to explain this? And another guy who said, and within our organisation we've had 2 serious injuries. And I said, you can't use that gesture. And he said, why not? I said, because it's a rude gesture. He said, oh, only you would know, Louise. No, believe me, it's not only me who knows. That is not suitable. That is not suitable. So, what we need to do is think about what we're going to do, and I'll tell you very quickly because you are good, is that feet are apart and parallel. They're not together. You know, literally pushoverable is figuratively pushoverable. People will see you as a pushover if you have your feet together. Likewise, if you have your feet wide and splayed out, you're unbalanced and will be read as such. So the feet are apart and parallel and 1 foot distance apart. And then the knees are loose. Now, really important with this position is that your lower body is tipped under. You have a flat back, because that's where you get your power. It doesn't look aggressive, it's powerful. And from there, you can engage, you can use your breathing. If we leave our power behind, the whole system is messed up. So who am I who leaves their power behind when they walk in front of a group? Who am I? Julia Gillard. Julia Gillard does that when she walks on stage. Now, the thing, and everyone who's met Julia Gillard says how wonderful she is off stage. She comes on stage and we get this weird persona. And it doesn't come down to any personal attribute. It is postural. You know, it is a choice that she makes that is a poor one. Her bum sticks out. Now, if I do that, I have no power. From my singing, I know that you go, ah, you know, Pavarotti goes, Vincero, Vincero, doesn't he? He goes back, he opens his arms. He doesn't go, Vincero, because it doesn't work. So Julia, by leaving her power behind, when she wants to become powerful, doesn't have the body to do that. So instead, she goes for her head. She goes for her head to make point, to be powerful. That's not powerful. It's called the chook. And it's very undermining. So when we come to upper body and we start thrusting upper body and worse the head forward, it's not power. Power is the lower body. So we have the lower body under. The upper body's on straight. The big question is, where do you put your hands? Hands don't go behind the back. From a non-verbal perspective, hands behind the back says I have something to hide. I could have a gun. But actually, from what I call vocal intelligence perspective, you never see people standing in singing competitions with their hands behind the back because it alters your posture. So we bring the hands to the front, but we can get that so wrong. What Tony Abbott does is he turns the backs of the hands to the front, and then we get this kind of walk. And again, it's upper body, and it is aggressive, and it is actually It's a head fart. So the hands are palm out. But when we put them by the side, 98% of people under stress will fiddle. It's called the claw. And it's very often the left hand. So we might say, are there any questions? Boom, the left hand goes. And it is a strong misdirection to say, I'm actually really stressed. It's a giveaway. Too high a risk. So where are they going to go? They can't go here, that's the diaphragm. They come to the front. This position has a name though. What is the name for this position? Any idea? It's called fig leaf. And fig leaf leads very quickly to flashing fig leaf. So some of the critical things that we have to do. And again, for some reason we do this. I did see a woman one day walk out and we have our hands here like this to protect ourselves, you know. And she came out and she said, good morning, everyone. I only tell true stories. And once you're raised, this ability is raised to see this in you, let me tell you the bad news. You can never turn this off. You can never. And another one that we didn't say is when we block our breath and bring our arms in, is that we get this one. And this one's called Tyrannosaurus Rex. So it's, hi everyone, it's great to be here and it's going to be a really great conference, a couple of days. That's not a really great couple of days, that's a really great couple of days. You know, Tyrannosaurus Rex. Now you know Tyrannosaurus Rex, you'll see it everywhere and it'll drive you nuts. So what are we going to do to get off big leaf? Well, we do what Obama does, which is to put hand on wrist. Hand on wrist. And that gives you an asymmetry that gets you off your genitals. So it's feet apart and parallel, knees bent, pelvis under, body up straight. So pretty classically where I would use that is you would say, are there any questions? And you know, psychopaths hold gestures. And that's what you need to do. Why? Because they do it for a reason. It attracts attention. It's got the right messages. We don't want to do it. We all want to go, oh, any questions? No. Hold gestures. So you hold them. You may come over here for a question and then think, there aren't any questions. I can't hold this for the rest of my life. I'll go very slowly to rest position. And then nod your head, because that says I'm flexible of mind. A stiff head is the defensiveness I was saying earlier. So the head nods. So, what was your name? Mark. Mark, I'd love you to come up and see where else we could use this. So Mark, up you come. Mark, just imagine, here we are, that's it, looking at the audience. Yeah, great. So Mark, just imagine that Mark and I have been in a meeting. You are. Now, a couple of things, Mark, is that we did go for the pockets. The pockets has a name. The pockets is called pocket billiards. And often I get asked, can you do one hand? No. No, you can't do one hand, you do no hands. Pockets, you know, no. Now the other thing is, Mark, that you're doing there beautifully is one leg. So from a non-verbal perspective, the research on one leg says, tell someone who cares. I can't even be bothered standing on one leg. And yet we do it all the time, Mark. We go, so I'll open for questions. Are there any questions? And it says, because I don't give a shit. And yet we think that it's, you know, it's relaxed. It's not. 2 feet. From a vocal intelligence perspective, 2 feet, actually, singers always sing on 2 feet. You can't get your power. So if you wanted to say, no, you need your power. If you're on one leg, no, you're going to throw your upper body, it won't be good. Great, so Mark, we have had a staff meeting, and I'm one of your staff, right? And we are turning to leave the meeting. You're going to leave the meeting, except I'm going to suddenly think, oh, I think there's something else I need to ask Mark, and I'm going to ask you to turn around. Okay, everybody. So meeting's finished, Mark's leaving. Yeah, and I go, oh, excuse me, Mark, can I just talk to you for a minute? Yes, great, okay. Well done, well done. So, Mark didn't quite turn to face me, did he? It's sort of, often we leave the feet going that direction and go, sure. Meaning I was going that way and would rather be going that way. But whenever you sense emotion or uncertainty, it is actually a great strategy to face danger full on. Yes, Louise. So let's try that. You're leaving the room. I say, excuse me, Mark, can I talk to you for a minute, please? Now, run on, that's it. And it says present. Now, Mark's gone. "Rrr." Now, what happens with the head is that, what happens with the head is that when we're head straight on, it says I'm present with the engagement. The minute the head goes to one side, that says my mind has gone on a different tangent. I'm on a different conversation. So head stays straight on, you face danger, rest position. Can you see how hard it is for Mark to take that rest position? He's still going, where do I go? Test this one out, Mark, and go to that one there like that. And the bottom hand is loose. Brilliant. And then nod your head. Now, face me, straight on, yeah? And go, yes, Louise.
Yes, Louise.
Yes. Now, as you go, yes, Louise, whenever we engage with sound, we open the arms. We go, yes, Louise, and back. Yes, Louise, and back. It says I'm fearless, I'm unguarded. So, try, yes, Louise.
Yes, Louise.
Great, and back. Brilliant. So, Mark, you're leaving the room. Let's do it. Leaving the room. Oh, excuse me, Mark, can I talk to you for a minute?
Yes, Louise.
Yes, Louise. Yes, Louise. One more time. Ready? Can I see you? Yes, Louise. Yes. Excellent. Well done. That's great. Well done. So could everybody stand up, please? Could you turn around as though you're leaving the room, and then suddenly I say, oh, excuse me, could I talk to you for a minute, please? No. Turn around. Yes, Louise. Yes. Well done. Thank you. So give yourselves a clap. Now, did you find that you did it? Were there any challenges? You know, often the only challenge is habitual pattern. And the fact that the position that we have, we're protected from. Now, ever since I was in primary school, there was a stone throwing incident, and I threw stones. And I have stood like that. I remember it so distinctly. I was, in primary school, and they said, Louise, you threw stones? And I'm like, yeah, I didn't even, want to hurt or anything. And then I go like this. I am so comfortable in that position, it's not a joke. And yet that doesn't serve me in professional life. So anything else doesn't quite feel as comfortable as that, which is the position with which I got out of trouble. And we all have that. So when we change it, we think, this won't work, this won't work. So where I'd love you to practice it is whenever you're in a queue for coffee, is to take rest position. As you walk, you never walk in rest position, break. As you walk until you get to the front, and then you go, hi, could I have a cappuccino, please? And then open your arms, and I promise you, they won't jump the counter and say, are you all right? They won't, and you will become comfortable with it. So we've got our air coming out high with our greeting. We're opening our arms, fearlessness, and massaging our organs, showing how much we care. Our body is up straight so that can happen. And there are no rules except don't fiddle with your genitals, really. Now, one of the things is that the mouth, when we get into crisis, we seal our mouth and we go, yes? And you'll see it with the politicians, they do it all the time. Seal the mouth. That is a way of shutting down. And today they're showing that what is communicative is that the mouth is slightly open. The mouth is slightly open, don't seal it. And it's great. Hillary Clinton is a great example of this. The Americans, they always, hi! They have the mouth wide open. Now, I'm not suggesting that you do that, but it might be a bit of an idea just to check that the mouth doesn't seal and go tight. All our politicians do it, and with Kevin Rudd, you could always tell how stressed he was by how tight the mouth would go. And then he'd lick his lips so they didn't stick together. And they all do it. Joe Hockey does the bulldog and lifts up like that. So we've got our breath unblocked, we've got our posture unblocked. This one is something few people know about, and it's the throat. Something in the throat. Our throat we imitate throat shapes. So when somebody yawns, the rest of the room yawn, because we imitate throat shapes, there's no other reason. It's an ancient form of empathy. Now, therefore, if you can keep your throat open, you can guide the thinking of others to be much softer. So it's a very useful thing to know. What's in that throat is that behind here, the tube splits into two. One part goes to the stomach and one part goes to the lungs. Where are the vocal folds within that? Any idea? I know that some of you will know, but many people think it's in the throat. They're actually on the way to the lungs. They're at the division that goes to the lungs because the vocal folds are just a valve. And they're a valve, their primary function is different from making sound. Making sound is their secondary function. Their primary function is to stop you from drowning. They stop you from drowning. And unfortunately, they're governed by emotional mind, which doesn't know the difference between drowning from emotion or drowning from water. So when you get into a situation where you feel that you're drowning, the throat closes. Worst case scenario, you can't speak at all. Second worst case scenario, the vocal folds start working, but there's two blobs above them called the false vocal folds. And those false vocal folds stick out like big blobs of cotton wool, and they sit on the vocal folds. And the sound that you get is this. So I think one of the critical things that we could do is look at this, and then maybe we finish off the sentence with a bit of vocal fry. A lot of people do that, so I think one of the critical things that we need to do is this, and we go into vocal fry, or critical things we need to do, go into false vocal folds. False vocal folds, it's a drowning, I'm drowning, I've just given away, I'm drowning. Now, this is interesting for you to notice this in other people because, for instance, with teachers, if you say, how are you? They go, oh, I'm really well. And then you go, how's that classroom going? And they go, oh, yeah, it's going quite well at the moment. They've actually said, I am drowning, I cannot manage it. And they've given that to you much more strongly than the words that they said. So that's judging other people, but what about you? Because you don't want to give away that you're drowning. So what are you going to do to make sure the false vocal folds can retract? Just like when the diaphragm jams, we can kick it free. Just like when the mouth shuts, we consciously open them. The same with the throat. When it shuts down, the emotional brain says, shut. We actually have rational control to open them. What are we going to do? Any idea? Very quiet for school principals. You see, here's a problem that we haven't got a strategy for. And it's a bit like the lady who showed the whites of the eyes and then thought the strategy was to smile, which of course is the definition of sinister, so was going down the wrong path. Is that many of us, when we get that false vocal fold thing, we do two things. The first strategy we go for is cough. Doesn't work. That was good for the diaphragm, is not good for the throat. The second strategy that we go for is water. And we go for the water. Now, am I allowed to say one swear word? One swear word's all right? Okay, so this guy I was talking to, and he got performance anxiety on stage, and he got that voice and it didn't work. And so he went for the water. Water goes to the stomach, it doesn't go to the lungs. It doesn't go to the lungs, doesn't go past the vocal folds. It does not work. But what we do is we think, I know what I'll do, I'll drink more water. So he's standing on stage, that didn't work. So then he grabbed a bottle of water and he walked with the bottle of water, going like this for an hour. And when the presentation finished, the conference organizer was furious. And she sat there and she stared straight ahead, and I was sitting next to her, and she said, what is he, a fucking camel? True story. So, don't go for the water, it doesn't work. In fact, what they've shown is that what does work is bizarre, and we could sit here all year if you didn't know this and you'd never work it out. They've shown that the muscles under the eyes are connected to the same part of the brain as the false vocal folds. And when you lift the muscles under the eyes, it is impossible for the false vocal folds to come out. So as a singer, you know that entrance that you did, Anne, where you come up on stage, you know, you do that, you come forward, you stop, you open the arms, you go, hi, I'm Louise, and you always lift like that. Smile like a lunatic. Because the easiest way to lift the cheeks is to smile. And call it the Hillary Clinton, because in the most serious of situations, she will always open and say, are there any questions? And she lifts. This whole seriousness while focusing on your genitals, has to go. It's all protection. Open, fearless, slightly smiling. Now, you need to practice it. Just like rest position, when you walk forward, practice it in the queue. Every time I get into a lift, there's always mirrors in the lift. I'll practice rest position and just lift the cheeks. Because you want to check, do I look like an idiot? Because you don't want to be smiling like a moron in very serious situations, but you do want to open the cheeks, because if you get that sound, you lift the cheeks, the throat clears. And people imitate throat shape. It is very important to resolve conflict, to have your throat open. Do you think that would be useful? Can we all just smile at somebody near you just to check you've still got it in you? No! When my absolutely favourite thing is how we now move our arms apart from our rest position. We can't stand like this all day. We have to use arms to guide thought. And it's very much guided by I theory. And I theory says that we all have visual, auditory and kinesthetic learning preferences, and many people, when they think visually, actually look up. When we think of sounds, auditory, we're sideways, and when we think of feelings, either touching things or feeling internally, our eyes go down. Now, many of you would know this as neuro-linguistic programming. Not only do we look up, sideways and down, but we tend to look to different sides for different types of thought. And 80% of people follow the pattern where they look to their left-hand side for remembered information and to their right-hand side for constructed information. What's another word for constructed information? Lying. Now, you know that it is constructed information. You may be constructing what the new buildings will be looking like in the future, which isn't lying, and you could read this in others knowing this. The thing is that Mr. and Mrs. Joe Bloggs don't know this at all. They only know one thing, and that is you move your eyes in any direction, you're a liar. It's shifty eyes. It's not true, but shifty eyes is the perception of people listening to you. So as a person leading thought, it's eyes straight ahead. So just for 30 seconds, could you find someone next to you, turn to them and just ask them, tell them what you've heard over the last hour, and you're not allowed to move your eyes. Could you just try that? See if you can hold your eyes for 30 seconds. Go! 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Did anyone struggle with that? Yeah, you got to practice it, practice it, practice it with dogs, practice it with babies. Practice it until you can't not do it, because the amateur practices till they get it right, the professional practices till they can't get it wrong. And there is quite a lot of practice time between the two. Now, not moving your eyes is, of course, a skill of politicians. You can't be a politician if you move your eyes. And I put it to you, you can't be a leader of any kind if you move your eyes. Now, of course, you can't stare at everyone all day. Did anyone have the feeling, you go through stages of death doing this, where you thought, oh, I can't think unless I move my eyes? That's the first stage. Then what we tend to do is go, okay, she wants me not to move the eyes, I'll give you not to move the eyes. Yeah, I learned about breath, what about you? And we get really aggressive. We actually have to soften it. How are we going to soften it with the eyes and so it doesn't look like staring, because it's not staring? What are we going to do? You're absolutely right. So it's face movement is the answer, and we can smile, we can nod the head, and we already talked about those to soften. But the major one that you said is blinking, and they have measured it. It's a blink every 4 seconds. It's 15 blinks a minute. That is, I'm listening to you. That is the listening blink. So combining all of that, if you're in a difficult situation, you might take your facilitative position instead of power position, Embrace the room, go to rest position, nod your head, smile like an idiot, and blink every 4 seconds. And that is a pattern, that's a guideline for a way that you'll look half decent, but actually you're bringing yourself to the engagement. You know from that position, sound will come out of your body as it perfectly should. Now, the arms, we use the arms to follow where the eyes go. So if I wanted you to imagine something, to visualize your strategy for your school, which way do I want your eyes to go? So this would be my gesture to do that, is to put my arms up and draw it in the sky. We've lost this gesture. Can I ask you to put your arms up and draw in the sky? Draw in the sky. Yes, let's get a great picture of what you'll look like when you go back to school. Brilliant. And popping them down. Now, if I wanted you to give me your feedback for any fantastic opportunities responses you got at school, that's an auditory concept. That comes into the ears. So if you thought that felt stupid, try this. Elbows up and into the ears. So love your feedback. And then, it feels silly? And then everything kinesthetic is down here. So can we go down here for kinesthetic? So maybe when you go back to school, have a look at what other people are doing and try, some different exercises and maybe, get people's feedback and just check that they're comfortable with the way that you're working. This is called congruent gesturing. It's got your arms off your body, it's got you flowing. Could I ask you now the timeline, where is the future? Could you point to the future, please? Where is it? Most people go, I've got no idea. The ancient Romans studied this and they showed that audiences, people who are in front of you face to face, think that the future is in front of you and to the side with one hand. That's exactly right. It's out there. That's the future. Can we all do it? It's a straight arm. It's a straight arm. It goes out like that. You don't point, you grab it. As a leader, you grab the future. That is infinity and beyond. So that is a leader. Now, give me the future, put that out there, grab it. If that's the future, where's the past? The other hand. The other hand, and you throw it. The timeline goes through you. There's the future, there's the past. Here's the present. Can we do that? Today. Today, possum gesture. Now, that's great. Not everything from the past is thrown. We have lessons from the past we pack into a suitcase, which we carry on our past side. So we have, can I ask you numbers, where do they go? There's 2 things you need to talk about. Often we go like this, 2 things I need to talk about. No. Numbers go beside your head. Numbers have a phallic nature. They stay upright and they stay. So 2 things I need to talk about. The first is this. We never thrust gestures at people. You hold them still. It's quite hard to do. You can move everything else, but you can't move your gesture. So we have 2 things. Could we have that? 2 things? And the first thing is this. Brilliant. I saw some people go, first thing, no, don't throw your gestures. 2 things and the first thing is this. Try that. 2 things and the first thing is this. Don't throw it. Don't thrust it. Now, give me a 50% of you will be going swimming today. I want the gesture for 50%. What have you got? Ever thought about it? Yeah, see, we don't think about it. Here it is. Try this. Here's 0. Give me one hand straight up. Here's 100%. 50% of you, or 50%, that would be half going that way, not 50% improvement, 50% of you will be going swimming, 50%. Yeah, and you keep that one hand still. So, there's 50% of you will be actually going swimming and the other 50% will be doing homework. I don't know, whatever it is, but that's where you do gestures. So what we have is I'd love to get feedback about you going back to your schools, and I'd love to see you really practicing all of the things that we've learned. And I think that I'd see a new you. And over the next couple of weeks, see, that's the timeline to the future. Over the next couple of weeks, I think you will see a big difference, because in the past, we didn't have the right strategies. And what happens is we needed to learn from that, and then today come here and apply those skills so that we can see them in a couple of different ways and take back 2 different skills, or maybe just one. And we'll see fantastic things into the future. Now, if I were doing incongruent gesturing, what we often tend to do is play with our underclothes. So I might say one of the critical things is that, you know, is that you'd go back to your schools, and I think it would be interesting to see, you know, what would happen, and just check that everyone's really comfortable with what you're doing. It's very distracting, and you are now ruined because you can never not see it again. Do people do this? Yes, they do. Obama, of course, uses gestures all the time. Leaders are seen to be gesturing towards the future. Know where that is and gesture towards it. All leaders do. Martin Luther King did. And don't let this one put you off. That was not original thought. He stole it. And as long as you don't have a flat hand, you're fine. So everyone, could I ask you to stand up, please? I would love you to put your hands to your stomach. I want you to unjam your diaphragm so that you can give voice all day, every day, and try maybe a little cough. And then we have high, opening your arms. High, high. And then we might try a note like high, high. And then we might point to the future. Gesture to the future, gesture to the past, throw the past. Today's the present. We have a few numbers, and maybe we want feedback from everybody. Get your elbows up. We have feedback. We have our rest position that we go to. And remember, we hold gestures. When you have specific things, you place them out there. You give things space and awareness. You have percentages. Your eyes are out the front. Your air is flowing because it shows how much you care, and I know you do, and how much you're giving. So could you try for me now? The exam, it goes, ha. Are you ready? Ha. Now let's do a leap. Ha. Ready, together. Ha. Now let's add some words, and we try. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high. Give me all your air. There's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Now we're powerful. Could you lean back and open your arms for your power, please? And now we're going to go. If happy little bluebirds fly. Are you ready? If happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow. Open up! Why, oh, why can't I? Well done. You're good singers. You're good singers. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.